Welcome back. In this video I'm going to continue from the story of twiddle.c to the much improved version twiddle2.c. So twiddle.c was the name I gave to this particular program you're seeing over here, which had a function to read a name, or more generally a string, from the standard input or keyboard up until a new line or end of file character. And it put it into a what I call a buffer here, which was declared globally. The problem, as you may recall, was that I can't write the sort of code I would like to write in what you might call real high-level languages that have proper object-oriented type strings. I can't write name equals read name as I would like to, because we just can't. What I have to do instead is give or pre-allocate workspace for read name to read the name into up to some maximum length. I did that globally. We don't like globals much. We'd prefer to get away from them, although they are a bit more acceptable in C than they are in other languages because we've got one hand tied behind our back already. Ask me more in lectures. For now then, let's just assume we don't like globals, and I'm going to stop using them straight off, and I'm going to put the declaration of the variable down where I need it, which is in the main function. It's the function that wants to read a name. It's going to give space, or got to give that space to the function. You might wonder why I don't declare it in here. That hopefully will become clear next week. For now I'm going to declare it here, and I'm going to pass it in that way there. So a couple of things to note. First of all, I have to initialize it to 0 because this is now in the local stack frame for main. When it was global, it wasn't critical because global variables automatically get cleared to 0, at least on our machines in the lab. I'm not sure whether the standard specifies that, but I must clear it to 0 here, absolutely. I've specified it there as a parameter. I've passed it as a parameter. For now, let's just assume that although all other parameter types are passed by value, arrays are different, they're passed by reference. Just live with that until next week, and then the real truth will be made clear. Since I've passed a parameter, I have to specify the type of it and the name of it in here. And what is the declaration? Well, I'm just going to write char name, and I don't need to say how big it is. If I do say how big it is, anything I say is totally ignored. It's useless. The reason being that I'm just getting a reference. I'm just actually, as it turns out, being told the address of the base area of this array. That's the only piece of information. 1 8-byte on lab machines, 4 bytes on your microprocessors. One address, one single number is being passed in, which is where it is. Because all I have passed in as where it is, I would like to know how big it is, how much workspace I have. So I'm going to do that with, there's two ways I could do it. For now I'm going to use an int, because that's what I did over in the other function. I see I put them in different ordering over there, so maybe I should stick with the ordering I used in my example slides. I said int maxlen. More technically, a better definition would be size type, but we haven't really done those yet. I'll worry about them later. Size type is a general purpose way of defining a type that's a size. It's an unsigned integer as of sufficient length for the machine you're working on. But for now, we'll work with int. Int maxlen char name. So because I've made use of the global hash define, a nicer way is to make use of the local parameter, of course, but that means I have to pass it in as a parameter down here as well, which is max name length. So with those modifications, I've declared the variable, the workspace, if you like, locally in the main function. I've passed it in as a parameter together with an indication of how big it is. Well, the exact specification of how much space is available. Note again that the space that I need is 1 more than the maximum length of the name. So maxlen is possibly a little confusing. It's not the maximum length of the name, it's the maximum amount of memory I'm allowed to use in this function. Build, run, it says Richard. I seem to have forgotten to print something. I used to have a printf statement here, which appears to have gone AWOL. It should have said printf name. I expected to get it printed out again. The %s format is passed again by reference, an address and memory, and it prints all the characters up to, but not including the first 0 byte. Run that one again, enter your name Richard, and it prints Richard. So that's really all I have to say in this one. This is the improved version in which rather than declaring a global variable, we declare a local variable in the caller's namespace, not the callee, the caller, and we pass both the size of it and the address, if you like, or the reference to it as parameters. So we need 2 parameters in general when we're passing stuff across into functions for workspace. That's it for this video. Bye.